All right, 420, 25. We got a couple minutes. We'll bring in our good friend Nick Kosko. Does a great job 24/7 sports covering college football. As we get a quick little preview of tonight's championship game as we close out the college football season. Georgia, Alabama, 1-3 respectively. Georgia's laying 2.5. Nick, how are you, my friend?
I'm good, kid. Can't believe the season is just about to end tonight, though. That's actually kind of crazy, but hey, we're going to get a good one tonight. Alabama, Georgia, best two teams. You couldn't have asked for anything more, actually.
No, you're 100% correct. The total is 52, and it's juiced to the over 52.5. I think they got it right. I think it is what it is, right? And you get the battle of SEC opponents, guys that are familiar with themselves. I don't think this line is going to be bet down any further than where it's at right now at 2.5 points. With that being said, what would be your keys for Alabama first to try to win this game?
I would say just mostly just do what they have been doing. And again, I'm not going to say run the exact same game plan as they did the first time against Georgia in the SEC championship game, but really it's going to be predicated on, can Bryce Young win you another game? I think he absolutely can. The guy won the Heisman Trophy for a reason. He's the best quarterback in the country at the moment. You have star receivers. You have a solid running back, and obviously that offensive line is great as well. Really cute. They have the advantage on offense, so it's a matter of if this game somehow gets into a shootout, which I don't think it's going to be. But if it gets into a shootout, they know they have the advantage. So it's just mostly, I would say, for Alabama, just firing off on all cylinders, executing 100%, and I think they would not going to cruise to a victory, but that's basically the game plan for the Crimson Tide. Really just do what you have been doing, execute, and it's a very cliche coach speak type answer, but I can't really think of any other keys for Alabama other than just go out there and execute, and I'm sure Nick Saban's going to say the same thing.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think a lot of people are going to go heavy with Alabama, as we already mentioned. They're 2.5-point dogs in this one. Look, I think if you are Georgia, I think you run the ball a little bit, try to open it up, get the tight end involved. I think you take your shots when they come. The one thing that would concern me a little bit with tonight is I think if you try to go drive for drive, series for series, if that makes sense, I don't know, man. I would give the edge to Alabama just because of Saban right there. And I know a lot of people think it's split when you look at this. I expect a close game that I think will probably come down to the fourth quarter. And then that's when I look at, the guys that step up and I look at who's on the sidelines. And to me, I give that X factor, that edge to Alabama and Saban. Like, I can see this being a 31-28 type of game where Alabama wins and they cover the number. So if you're Bama, what's your keys to the game?
Yeah, that's pretty much it there, Q. I mean, you mentioned it before.
Pardon me.
Oh, yeah, of course, for Georgia, yeah, absolutely. I mean, to me, you mentioned Brock Bowers, the tight end. He's the star freshman. He is going to be probably the biggest offensive key for the Bulldogs tonight. Stetson Bennett he's a very interesting case at the quarterback position. He gets criticized all year long. Well, he's not J.T. Daniels. When's J.T. Daniels going to come back? Oh, if Georgia's going to have any shot against Michigan, they need to put J.T. Daniels in there. Well, guess what? Stetson Bennett goes out there, and again, aided by an elite Georgia defensive performance, but Stetson Bennett goes out there and plays arguably the best game of his college career, and they need something like that out of him once again. I just think, when you look at Georgia, they need a little bit more than what Alabama needs, despite the fact that Georgia is now the favorite. But don't forget, this game opened at Bama -1, at least as far as I saw it, and then now everyone's saying, well, Bama's the favorite, we might as well just bet Georgia because, Georgia is bound to win the rematch this time. So, usually in the rematch scenario, Q, the team that lost the first time generally does win the second time around. But again, you're going against Nick Saban here, so for Georgia to even come out on top in this game, you need another one of those top Stetson Bennett performances like you saw against Michigan in the semifinals. You have to get Brock Bowers involved on offense. He's the key to that passing game, to opening things up as well for Pickens. And, of course, this will be a battle of elite defenses. You have Jordan Davis, the Kobe Dean on the Georgia defense, and on the flip side, you have Will Anderson, the star linebacker for Alabama. So it's just a matter of who's going to end up making more stops. So I think the biggest key for Georgia is if that passing game gets going, it's going to open things up and allow them to compete with the Crimson Tide in a shootout type of game, if it gets to that. But that ultimately could be the key to them to actually winning this whole thing tonight. But to me, it's going to be on the shoulders of Stetson Bennett once again. Now, I'm not saying that JT Daniels will give them a better shot tonight, but Stetson Bennett, he needs to have another one of those games like he did against Michigan.
Yeah. No, it's a great point, and I concur, right? It comes down to what Georgia can do offensively. Look, Alabama dominated the previous matchup because they were able to find those explosive plays and limit that Georgia offense. I kind of get the sense that we're going to see it tonight. I am curious. It sounds like you're leaning towards Alabama.
Yeah, no, I made the pick on the college football pick-up just this past Saturday. I mean, I do like Alabama. I saw even when it was at +3 for Bama, I like that cue. I mean, I'm leaning towards the over as well in this one. I think there are going to be enough points scored where that number is valid at 52. But yeah, I went into this game thinking that that Alabama was going to win the rematch. It's just so tough to bet against Nick Saban. The fact that he's now an underdog against Q, I mean, it seems Nick Saban, whenever he's an underdog, he just goes out and says, let's prove all these bettors wrong, and we're going to win our Crimson Tide faithful some money if they're going to place a nice hefty bet on us in the national championship.
Yeah, I mean, I want a competitive game. I think it'll be a high-scoring game. I'll definitely play the over. I'll definitely play that total. But I am, I don't know. To me, Alabama's just got the horses, and I always look at the head coach. You know, playoffs in the NFL, you kind of look at the quarterbacks, but in college, sometimes I tend to kind of look at the head coaching, and we've already know about Saban's track record. I am curious, and I know I got you for a couple more minutes to get your thoughts. So with all these, the Black Monday in the NFL and Miami firing Flores, and I guess everyone's starting to link, all right, well, Ross is a Michigan guy. Here you go, Harbaugh. Maybe the Raiders open up the checkbook with Harbaugh. Do you see Harbaugh leaving Michigan?
You know, Q, it's interesting. I had this conversation with a couple of my guys over at 24/7 Sports, including my good buddy Riley Gates, and he had some interesting points on it as well. But, you know, you really opened the dialogue and saying, well, you know, you look at these NFL teams that now have these openings, and you're saying, where could Harbaugh possibly go? I know there were reports out there that he was going to be tempted by the Raiders. The Raiders seems like it's a good opening. Again, it's a playoff team now, and you know, for what they had to do this year after the firing of John Gruden, that's pretty impressive. And there seems to be pieces there. I know people have mentioned the Bears, so he has the ties there as well. Young quarterback, of course, with Justin Fields, and the Miami Dolphins saying, I think they actually came out and said that he's not going to be in the running for the Dolphins job. And it's interesting that Ross has those Michigan ties, and I feel like Ross, I believe he said today, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he said today that I think Ross said he hopes Harbaugh is at Michigan, so that's not hinting at maybe Harbaugh is using this, or at least his agent is using this as a contract ploy to get more money from Michigan. That's where I see this thing going. I mean, I could see him maybe going to the Raiders or the Bears. It's anywhere. An NFL team could come out of the woodwork queue and say, you know what, we're going to offer you X amount of dollars, blank check here, come back to the pros, as we know you're good at this level. But to me, Q, I think Harbaugh finally found his comfort zone, which is Michigan. The fact that he won the big one already, over Ohio State, won the Big Ten title, got to the playoff. He's got Michigan by the you-know-what at this point. So, and again, it's his alma mater. So I think this is more just for a money ploy, so to speak. But he earned it, obviously, with his 12-2 season this year in 2021. And moving forward, you see guys like James Franklin and Mel Tucker in his own division getting these huge contracts. So if Harbaugh can do what he did this year, why not? Maybe he doesn't get the 10-year extension cube, but maybe he gets the same amount of dollars. Just in, maybe we'll say, between $6 and $7 million a year, maybe $8 million a year, but for the next 3 to 5 years instead, in terms a more short-term extension. But I think Harbaugh is using this more to say, you know what, I have something here at Michigan now. I got over the hump. The pressure's off, so to speak, at least temporarily. I think he wants to stay in Michigan. I think he will stay in Michigan.
Yeah, I'm wondering, though, too, and those are all valid points that you bring up, Nick, but part of me thinks, well, what if the Raiders came along and they were pretty much going to open up the checkbook? Now, granted, I think they'll go in a different direction with the interim head coach, who's done a fascinating job. They dealt with the Gruden stuff. Mayock's most likely going to be out. But, I don't know. I don't see Chicago opening up the checkbook. It's a cheap franchise. They're not going to give them more and trust them with all that power. Giants would be fools to do it. But then you got the Raiders, and I don't know. I get the sense, hey, we'll open up the checkbook, and here you go. You want to be GM, you want to be head coach, you can have total control. Listen, the NFL, we know the NFL is such an appealing spot, right? And we understand the Raiders would be a great, appealing job opening for any candidate. I mean, that's a good football team.
When you look at the Raiders, Q, again, it's Vegas. They're going to open up that checkbook. I mean, heck, Q, they opened it up for John Gruden, if you recall that. So when you look at the Raiders, I think that's why Harbaugh is going to say, I'm going to be tempted by the Raiders, because he knows they could probably offer the most money. Now, again, could Miami open up the checkbook, the Dolphins? Sure, they could, but I don't think they're going to be interested. Again, I think Ross is trying to say, you know what, Harbaugh, stay in college, stay at the alma mater, because I'm also a donor, so to speak. But you're looking at the one spot here. I do agree with you. If he does go back, I think the one spot, again, just based on reports as well, the one spot that is going to tempt him is the Raiders. It's Vegas. You have Derek Carr. I think he would work well with Derek Carr as a quarterback. I'm sure Harbaugh would attract some free agents. He obviously knows the college talent pool as well. Again, people forget Harbaugh was very successful in the NFL with the 49ers over his 4 years. 3 championship games, 1 Super Bowl appearance. Throw out the last year, and then he only got fired because he didn't get along with management. I feel like Mark Davis would give him a blank check and say, "You do you, Jim. We're going to lock you in for 5 to 6 years. Do whatever you got to do. Just bring the Super Bowl at the end of it." And I think that's pretty much it. So we'll see if he goes there too. But I would say if he does come back, it's going to be the Raiders. I mean, I would throw the Bears in too, just because of his connections there. But if you're talking about a team that's going to open up the checkbook for him to try to get him away from Michigan, to me, it's no question. It's unquestionably the Raiders.
Yeah, I would agree with that one. All right, Nick Kosko at Nick Kosko 59 on Twitter, national writer, video 24/7 sports play-by-play. Are you wrestling? Jersey Flight, FB, Atlantic City FC. 30 seconds. Go ahead. Wax poetic about your Eagles. I actually think they're getting Tampa Bay at the right time, and I'll leave it at that.
I mean, they very well could. I'm not going to go out and make any predictions because now I'm going full fan mode this week, Q. I mean, they're back in the playoffs under a first-year head coach, essentially a first-year quarterback. This is all gravy, baby. But I'll just say what? I'll just say this: Go Birds! It's going to be warm down there in Tampa. That run game better be alive.
All right, that's a good point to end it on. All right, pal. Always appreciate you. We'll talk next week.
Appreciate you as always, Q.
All right, there you have it. Nick Kosko joining us for a couple moments. Yeah, Tampa Bay is right for the picking. The Harbaugh thing, a lot of you guys were tweeting at me and asking me my thoughts on Harbaugh. And Nick brought up a really good point. Remember, the Raiders did this too with Gruden, right? They threw a substantial amount of money to John Gruden. Would they do the same thing potentially with John Harbaugh? See, you're going to link John Harbaugh to all these teams now. I'm sorry, Jim Harbaugh to all these teams. You're going to link them all over the place. Not John Harbaugh, Jim Harbaugh. You're going to link them all over the place. You'll link them to the Dolphins, the Bears, the Giants, and the Raiders. And John Harbaugh had a pretty bad last month of the season. We'll get into that in the 5 o'clock hour. All those close losses by the Ravens. So he's going to be a hot commodity. He is. Jim Harbaugh is going to be a hot commodity. Now, what I can see happening, now bear with me for one moment. And I know Steve Ross came out and basically, kind of poo-pooed it. If you go down what's happening at South Beach, and everyone talking about Brian Flores, and I believe he's a good head coach. I also believe that this is where I'm going with this, so just follow me. Heads always have to roll when a team doesn't meet expectations, i.e. what potentially would happen in New York, what we've already seen in Chicago and Denver. In Miami, that was a 1-7 football team. I find it hard to kind of reconcile you guys out there saying, well, they quit on the head coach when they, six or 7 games in a row they won? So the head coach didn't really see eye to eye with the GM. What is that, a first time in the NFL? The head coach really wasn't high on the quarterback. Well hello? We've not seen that before? Doug with Carson? Shanahan with Jimmy G? We've seen that before. I can't really reconcile this. I can't. But my point is this. When you have a hot name out there and he's in the college ranks and he's played the pro game, he's had success in the pro game, he's had success now in college, I believe you make a decision based on what you believe will happen. And that's what I would call that Harbaugh effect. We used to call it the Gruden effect years ago because he was that sexy name that was always out there. But if you're Miami and you're Flores, well, remember one thing. Even if Jeff Darlington tweeted out that the decision to fire Flores is entirely independent, well, the GM also made a bunch of faux pas because they drafted Tua. That's on the GM, not the head coach. Flores is going to land on his feet. I can't say the same thing about a guy like Fangio. I can't say the same thing as someone like potentially Joe Judge if he gets fired. Nagy, I think, is done in the NFL. He was a horrible head coach. So we knew it was going to be fast and furious. Now, when I went through that list, and I hate doing it because there's still livelihoods, I gave you a list. I think I gave you 6 names of head coaches that I believe were going to be out. And if you remember, we know there's going to be a change in Houston. We already saw the change in Jacksonville. I mentioned Denver. I mentioned the Giants. We knew for a fact Chicago, Minnesota with Zimmer and then Nagy, they were going to make changes. Carolina looks like Matt Rule's safe. We don't know what's going to happen in Seattle. So there's going to be a shuffling, right? A shuffling of head coaches, a shuffling of GMs. You would like to get to stability, but it doesn't happen overnight. And Nick brought up a really good point. Look at the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, I was mocking Nick Sirianni, and I was. And right now, I have egg on my face. Flat out wrong. Flat out wrong right now. If you want to say it's not on him, it was masked, you still have to give credit where credit is due. He decided, we got to run the football. He decided, I got to take pressure off my young quarterback. He decided we have to stick to what works for us and not deviate from that. And that was running the football. And they've turned the season around. And they won 9 games. You know, and I joked, and people, this is what happens on Twitter when I said, for those that had 9.5, I wasn't talking about from a gambling standpoint, but I know a lot of Eagles fans that told me they were going to win 10. But they're going into the playoffs. It doesn't matter that you beat the Jets or Washington, the Giants, Washington twice. I don't care about that. You play who's on the schedule. You have to get a little momentum. And I was a little worried the other night, and I thought Seth Joyner kind of brought up a really good point in postgame. And I talked a little bit about it, too, over the weekend. You know, when you go into a game and you already know you got stuff kind of already like locked up, and you're playing your, second team basically. Okay, fine. But you do want a little momentum going into the playoffs. And I think people undersell that. They undervalue that. I'm a big believer in that. I always think you have to have some type of momentum. I always believe that. And giving up 51 would be a little troublesome. It really would. But I think you get a Tampa Bay team right now that is leaking a little bit of oil. I really do. And now you have an Eagles team that is playing with house money. Because that's exactly what they're playing with. It's house money, folks. I thought the line would have been 6.5. It opened at 9. It's been bet down to 8.5. It'll probably sit right around that number. But you're going to see some money move on the Philadelphia Eagles. You will. Would it be a monumental upset? No. It wouldn't be like the all-time great upset. Because I can see the 49ers going into Dallas, a 3-point dog, and winning that game. Explain this to me. The 49ers and Jimmy G, who a lot of people I know don't believe in Jimmy G, are only a 3-point favorite against a 12-win Dallas Cowboys team that just put up 51. But yet the Philadelphia Eagles, who gave up 51, they won, 5 out of their last 6 to close out the season, are 9-point favorite against a Tampa Bay team that if you look over the last month of the season, leaking oil. They had the bad loss to the Saints. They beat 2 bad teams, and then they finally start to pull away against a bad Panthers team. They're not invincible is what I'm saying. They're not. They're just not. Brady's probably going to win the MVP, by the way. All right, 4:45, quick timeout.